probably the result of the weekend, and that was the superb result for the Salford Red Devils, 54-18 against Hull FC. Not the best of start to Andy Last's career in charge of the early birds, John. And Salford, well, it could have been all too hard for them this year, having won, or made it rather, to the grand final this year, but certainly put some critics in their places with that result on Sunday.
Well, you always wondered how it was going to turn out for Hull, didn't you? With their pack, you know, and they're built for, well, they're not built for the new rules, are they? So I think everyone thought that was going to turn up a few new tricks for them. But yeah, all credit to Salford, and they looked great as well, didn't they?
They did look great. Are you concerned yourself about these new rules? Obviously, as a forward, no scrum when you get to play at some point in the future.
If we can, yeah, like scrums are. I think scrums is it's a rest, isn't it? And two, I don't think I'm going to do too well with the 6 again rule. I'm just going to put it out there right now.
You're going to be breaking through the line like Regan Grace.
I mean, have you just put me and Regan Grace in the same sentence?
Yes.
Well, I'm just going to stop it there. I'm going to take that. That's fine. You mean speed and prowess?
Something like that. Grace. That's what I was saying. Well, Grace. Yeah, there's the word.
Yeah, Grace. I mean, that's also a new word, but I'll take that too.
Taking me out of this hole, John. Salford, they were really good.
Yeah, they were outstanding. It's great to watch. Played with a lot of freedom, a lot of abandon. Execution was excellent. And yeah, the new rules definitely seem to suit the way they play, the way they move the ball. And Tuilagi here had probably one of the best games of his career, I would say.
Certainly the best game he's ever played at Headingley.
Yeah.
Wow.
Say that. Yeah. I'm probably more worried about just what happens to Leeds and the Broncos as well. Yeah, I hope he's okay.
Phil, Tuilagi talked about his points at Leeds. Obviously went well last year. Continue to do so now.
I think put that down to Ian Watson. I think he's found a role for him that suits him. I think the way that he played on Sunday was reminiscent, I think, of the way that he's played for Tonga. So he clearly can play at the highest international level. I think you've got to have players around you that complement your style and can take the pressure off you. And just love what Joey Lussick does. He never gets the credit. I mean, even though he was absolutely brilliant last year and a deserved Man of Steel, Jackson Hastings wouldn't have been as good as he was without Joey Lussick inside him. His service out of dummy half is magnificent, as good as anybody's in the league. I think Chris Atkin looked very lively as well. So, you know, Lola here's great strength. It's not speed, is it? It's ability to read a game, to put the right kick in, to support when he needs to. If he's got a guy around him that's going to do the stuff that he can't do, then it's a great mix. I just love the way Salford play, and I think, you know, we're only in week 1 for virtually every team, and as we saw with Catalans, that St Helens apart, who've begun at a level that is so far above everybody else, you can't read too much in it until teams have played at least 2 games. 1, to see how they've come back from lockdown, and 2, to see how they cope with the new rules. So the Catalan of last week was not the Catalan of this week. It may well be that Hull, having learnt from the way they played this week, will be better next week. What I would say is Salford are going to have to go to replicate what they did, and their game against Catalan is shaping up to be a beauty next Saturday. But no, I thought Salford were magnificent. I thought the way they played, the expansiveness, the lightness of foot as well. They didn't necessarily go for power. Luke Yates is another classic example. He's quite a squat prop forward, but he's got a great engine, and he's not an Alex Walmsley type of prop. He's not going to go over the top of you, but he's going to work harder than you are for all the time that he's on the field. And that allied to some really good finishing from, you know, like Sir Rhys Williams. He's look at his stats. He is a top class finisher. Give him half a chance and he will score. There's a great balance about that Salford team. And Hull looked incredibly one-dimensional, which I think was the worry that we spoke about last week, that they've recruited a certain way, that they began quite well, but quickly ran out of steam, and they still haven't solved, with 5 months off, the issue of should Jake Connor start and control the game or come off the bench, because again, it did not work.
We still don't know what Jake Connor is, John, do we? Because obviously Hull don't know what he is, Andy Last doesn't know what he is, and he's obviously a very talented player, but no one knows where to play him.
Yeah, I think talent's one thing, but if he doesn't realise that talent or maximise it, if he doesn't realise his potential, then it's a bit of a waste, and you haven't really seen him do that throughout his whole career consistently. So it's quite a shame, and I think for Hull, if they are going to do anything this season or in the future, they need him to really step up and be a performer every week. He's not doing that, and as Phil said, I mean, I think it was a pretty disappointing performance from nearly every in every manner for Hull, and you have to worry about them the rest of the season now.
As a supporter of a team who tends to hang around at the same part of the table as Salford, I think say with confidence that they are a rag bag of players that perhaps have been rejected from elsewhere, Danika. And what do you make of the job Ian Watson does in terms of his ability to meld everyone together and get much more of the sum of their parts than the parts of themselves?
Well, I think that's a weird and wonderful thing, isn't it? This break that's going to be the test of the teams, I think, this break, and for anybody as well. And it's how well you've kept a track of your players, you've kept a track of your team, what have you been instilling in them whilst they've been out. And I think that's kind of, Ian Watson's we've seen last year, he can bring that team together, and what's he been doing over the off period. But I think, I don't know, am I being, from a player's point of view as well, the whole situation of this weekend, we're essentially having lots of mini magic weekends now until the foreseeable, which is changing the time, an earlier kickoff changes all your prep, the heat, I'm still kind of going to go with the fact that the Catalans, they train in that regularly, don't they, anyway? But in general, what have you been doing on the off-season, how things have been going in the off-season, how are you adapting and getting your players ready for different kickoff times that might affect the prep? And, for a lot of players, prep starts good 24 hours beforehand anyway. And then, the travel and everything like that. So it's just, you need somebody, I think he's quite a cool, calm and composed guy generally, isn't he? So maybe, I don't know, maybe that was the edge. Maybe it was in, not working for Hull because of their recruitment, because of the game now and how it runs. And, Salford, like you say, their forwards aren't huge and bouldering, but once they can move that ball well enough. So if all the forwards need to do is set a nice little platform for the backs to play off the back out of. So I think that will work in their favour. But like you say, next week's going to be a really interesting contest to see who comes out of it.
I don't want to extrapolate anything out of 1 week, Phil, as we did last week, and extrapolate the whole of the game with the new rule. We said at the start of the season, the rules have changed now. They obviously don't suit the squad. They haven't had a full-time appointment as coach, but whoever is in charge can't change. The players are there.
I think the issue for Hull is that apart from Scott Taylor, virtually everybody was fit. They actually made a selection decision about who they wanted their halfbacks to be, who they wanted to go with in their starting pack, what sort of balance they wanted it to be. So they are stuck with that recruitment for this year. As soon as we got into lockdown, then Andy Last was always going to be the option. Now, whether he's the long-term option, time will tell. I suspect, regardless of the result this week, which was incredibly disappointing, he probably isn't the guy they're looking for. I think they will want to go for a big name. So they've got some big personalities in that dressing room, and you have to manage them. There was a lot of talk, as there always is after a disappointing result, about, should Andy Last have left when Lee Radford went, because you don't really change what you're trying to achieve if some of the people are still behind the scenes that were party to that. I'm not sure about that. Sometimes you serve an apprenticeship, and Andy Last deserves a go. But I have a feeling that if Adam Pearson has ambitions and designs that we think he does, he'll want a name in there. He'll want a Craig Fitzgibbon type person who will put bums on seats. who will try and get the best out of the resource that he's got. But the problems that we identified right at the beginning of the year, how do you spell Danny Houghton? You know, who is your creative mainspring in a team where you've effectively got 3 of them? Unless you solve those problems, then it doesn't really matter who the coach is, to be honest.